What's going on, y'all? Zephyr here. I'm chilling right now. First of all, I want to open up. I want to ask you guys, how has your day been? And what have you been doing so far to progress yourself? Anyways, after you have finished answering that question, let's move on to the topic of the day. So, with the rise of Blue Lock Chapter 340, I want to make a callback to Blue Lock Chapter 278 or 9, I believe, when Isagi was kind of stuck when he came against the wall of talent, as stated by Ego. Essentially speaking, during the PhD match, Isagi was kind of thwarted by Rin and Shido and Charles and Loki when he stepped onto the pitch, which was a high wall of talent, as you would presume, and it was therefore theoretically impossible for Isagi to continue to adapt throughout the match because he couldn't understand or he couldn't generate a formula that was sufficient enough to combat the current geniuses on the field. Even Noah himself, he couldn't come with a winning theory to beat Noah, so therefore he was really stuck. And during that match, he found that Kaiser actually wasn't a genius. In actuality, every action or thought process that he made within each match, moving on to this one, was explained logically through the world, through the eyes of a, you would call it, talented learner. And that's when he came across this barrier, as I said previously, the wall of talent that he could not overcome. And the only way that he could overcome that is by becoming fully What I'm trying to say is that by fully becoming a talented learner and more so leaning into that aspect, he reset himself to zero and was able to find his true ego, which was to win. This was his true flow state, you could say. I would not say ego, but I'm just keep it right now because that's what it seems like to me, even though there's a lot of people who typically state that throughout the current match going on with PhD in the U20 World Cup, that Isagi still has not reached his true ego yet, so I'm kind of like torn between that idea, so I'm just keeping it as his true ego currently. And what I wanted to kind of like go briefly on was the fact that when he had rewrote his ego and he had stripped down his fixation on Noah, Kaiser, and Rim, and he found his true calling, which was towards his sense of self, that he wanted to prove that he could win because he loved soccer that much. And by doing that, he's able to find the fastest piece and not only change his ego to being he wanted to win, but he also said that I will use myself as a tool for victory. And in that moment, like everyone has been stating so far, that is the strongest version of Usagi we've seen thus far. And even after that, it seems to me that he has regressed to some extent, but not in a bad way necessarily. Anyways, I don't want to get into that, but I'll just, put that out there. Food for thought. Anyways, the only way he could beat geniuses was by trying to reset his ego, as people have called it the zero state, in which you truly tap into your flow state and find your true ego. And I'm wondering about how that's going to look against a strong, talented learner that's completely locking him down. And it makes me wonder if Isagi was able to revert himself to a zero state and then he was finally able to, combat the wall of talent or said geniuses in that environment, what can he do to a talented learner? I feel like at face value, yes, it should be more easier due to the fact that, this is a talented learner. They think just like him. So naturally, he can kind of break down the thought process. But that's what he was doing even when he didn't know people like Borrow or Ren were geniuses, and he thought that Rin was kind of like on the same level as him, or even a bit higher, of course, given his skill set. But he also thought that they had the same type of IQ, and he could just break that down and kind of use his opponent's thinking against him. But in this case, it's not that simple, because Hugo is a bigger dreamer and a bigger egoist than himself, when he clearly stated that he wanted to win the World Cup 4 times. I've seen a lot of people talk about that. It's crazy. And I just want to say this. Like everyone else, everyone is currently wondering, how can Isagi surpass someone who's clearly within his, I want to say, not skill set per se, but it's more so the same type of being as him, the same type of species. He is a talented learner, and he is so much better than Isagi in every way currently. So what type of philosophy or type of ego can he pull, or what aspect of himself, such as weapons, mentalities, ego, or philosophy, can combat somebody who's clearly outclassed him in each regard? And the only thing that's on my mind is, what type of awakening will we see? I don't think it's a problem personally when it comes to his skill set, because realistically speaking, both Isagi and Hugo have typically the same type of I want to say weapon formula. Not exactly. What I mean by that is that how in chapter 338, I believe, Hugo pretty much uses I want to say minimal dribbling. It's more practical, just like how Isagi went against Rin and did so. Not only that, he does use 1-2s just like Isagi, and prefers to use off-ball movement. And then when he receives the ball, he can either trap it and then shoot, right? And whereas Isagi has the similar goal formula where he can use 1-2 passes, off-ball movement, and then score off a direct shot. He doesn't need to trap the shot, unlike Hugo. The difference is that one of them is short range and the other one clearly is long range, because I was obsessing over how Hugo made that long range goal from outside the box. I'm not sure how far that is, but it seems, and this is just my guess, roughly 30 meters. So similar to Baro, but instead this shot was like a straight shot, and it was long range. It was just top bins, literally. Anyways, I'm rambling on. But I truly appreciate how far we've come in this story for Isagi, and I truly hope that whatever awakening it is, I feel like it doesn't need to be a weapon. And of course, that's been pretty obvious. I think everything has been foreshadowed in the earlier chapters. But this awakening definitely will have to involve something towards his ego, and that he should kind of rewrite it. Instead of wanting to be the world's best striker, he should kind of add on to that ego and kind of like build from there. Because up until now, he's been probably one of the strongest talented learners out there until he met Hugo. With that being said, I love you guys. I'll see you soon. This is my little sister. Love you guys. And I will see you in about less than 12 or 10 hours, I believe. Give or take, based on when the leaks come out. But I will talk about it soon. Love you guys. Bye.